Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, I will be tracking a major winter storm this week, bringing heavy snow and severe weather. Also, an Arctic blast looking more likely into late January and early February, followed by more winter storms possible getting into early February. We'll be tracking that and much more in this video. Again, looking at those high temperatures this afternoon, out the door this afternoon on Sunday, January 22nd, we're going to see colder temperatures to the north where that decent snowpack does reside across portions of the upper Midwest and the northern plains. Temperatures will be suppressed down into the teens and low 20s, but where we are snow free across the deep south, temperatures will rise into the 40s, if not the 50s down here, and even some 80s down into Florida this afternoon. We do have a storm system moving across the Ohio Valley, bringing some snowfall, lighter snow through portions of Chicago, getting into Indianapolis and portions of Detroit, and then back down here into Ohio later on today. That will be spreading up into the northeast as well, getting into the day on Monday. So tracking this here at the noon hour time frame here today, midday, we're seeing some lighter snow overspreading the Indianapolis area, getting it toward Columbus, Ohio, up here toward Toledo and Detroit here in Michigan. And then some of that snow will be spreading up into portions of Canada as well around the Toronto region. All rain across coastal portions of the Carolinas, getting through Virginia and down here into portions of southern Georgia and northwestern Florida around noon time frame. That will propagate farther east and enhancing some of that precipitation across upstate New York, getting into portions of Pennsylvania back towards Pittsburgh, and then up there into Vermont, New Hampshire, and western Maine with heavier snow. That I-95 corridor does look to be primarily rain going into this evening here from Boston down through Long Island here in New York City, and then down into portions of New Jersey. And then as we go into Monday morning, around that 6 o'clock time frame here before you're waking up for work on Monday morning, we could be talking about heavier snow overspreading portions of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of New York State, getting into western Massachusetts. Some backside moisture could be providing us some snow across that I-95 corridor Monday morning. That will continue into the afternoon before we shut off the precipitation from west to east across the northeast. Looking at additional snowfall accumulations from what we've already seen here on the ground this morning through Tuesday the 24th, early this week, a swath of at least 2 to 4 inches of snow across the Ohio Valley, getting up into Pennsylvania here and upstate New York, and then a heavier swath up here into portions of eastern New York through Vermont, New Hampshire, and then through much of Maine here, perhaps northwestern Massachusetts, of about 5 to 8 inches worth of snow going through that Tuesday time frame. Also, the heavier rain side of the system across the eastern Carolinas, getting down through much of Georgia, especially southern Georgia, and into portions of northern Florida here. In these pink shaded colors, we could be talking about easily 1 to 2 inch rainfall amounts across portions of, say, the Myrtle Beach area, getting down into Charleston, South Carolina, Macon, Georgia, and down toward Panama City, Florida as well. And that will extend farther north up to the outer banks of North Carolina through the day on Tuesday. We could also see some flash flooding down here as well, with that marginal risk for flash flooding across northwestern Florida, a small sliver of southeastern Alabama, getting across south central Georgia, and then the eastern side of the Carolinas going through today and into the day on Monday. But if you guys are with me on this video, don't forget to press the subscribe button down below and the like button. That's that thumbs up button down below. It helps to get all of this weather information out to more and more people, so I definitely appreciate that. You can also get all of my daily weather forecast content on this page as well by hitting the subscribe button down below and the like button. So definitely hit both buttons down below. Definitely much appreciated. But as we go into early this week here on Monday, January 23rd, tomorrow, we're going to have a significant trough dipping farther south, all the way south into the Baja of California and even northwestern Mexico down here. And we're talking about a pretty significant drop south with this trough. And that does mean some colder air aloft will overspread parts of northwestern and northern Texas going into the day on Tuesday, January 24th, bringing snow potential farther south as well, and before ejecting across the mid-Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley going into the middle of next week on Wednesday, January 25th. So taking a look here at the surface map here early this week on Monday, January 22nd, that low pressure system will be well far south into northern Mexico and the Rio Grande Valley down here. Initially, not much precipitation across this low pressure system, maybe some higher mountain snow up here toward portions of northern New Mexico. But as we go into the day on Tuesday, early this week, on the Tuesday, the 24th time frame, we could be talking about some heavier thunderstorms and severe weather down here across Louisiana, getting into Mississippi and Alabama and portions here of the northwestern Florida panhandle. So we'll have to take a look at that. But also some heavier snow across portions of western Arkansas through much of Oklahoma and into North Texas. And looking at this setup here, we have the colder air just above the surface here into the low and mid levels, actually wrapping in on the northwestern side of this low pressure system. You can see the deeper blues pushing down here into northwestern Texas, Oklahoma, and western Arkansas. And that will also transfer momentum down toward the surface with some of these colder temperatures. Just near surface temperatures here will be in the low to mid 30s, and that is supportive, at least some very wet snow, or at least a rain snow mix across these areas. And looking at the latest European high resolution guidance here going through that Tuesday time frame, we could be dropping some heavier snows down here into northern, northwestern Texas, getting up through Oklahoma into parts of the Arklatex, and then portions of southern Missouri as well. Probably more of an accurate depiction of the snowfall potential does reside with the NAM model. I do agree with more of these amounts, but the placement could be a little bit different here model to model, but I do agree with these amounts. I think a general 2 to 5 inches of snow is likely across northwestern Texas, say from Wichita Falls on up here into central Oklahoma toward Oklahoma City, more Oklahoma, and then getting up here into Tulsa, and then the northwestern side of Arkansas, and then portions of southern Missouri up toward Jefferson City and Springfield, Missouri as well, going through that Tuesday time frame. We also have to watch out for the warm side of the system. On Tuesday, January 24th, the Storm Prediction Center has issued a marginal to slight risk, a level 1 and 2 of 5 on the scale for severe weather down here across the immediate Gulf Coast, stretching from Houston over here toward New Orleans, getting into Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and portions of Mobile, Alabama, and then on over here toward Panama City, Florida as well. And you can see a solid squall line of storms will be propagating eastward through the afternoon and into the evening on Tuesday, bringing the threat for damaging winds over 60 miles per hour, some quarter-size hail, and yes, the potential for a few tornadoes could be spinning up on the leading edge of these storms. And then as we get through the midnight time frame and after midnight to around 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning, that squall line will be across middle Tennessee, down here across central portions of Alabama and portions of northwestern Florida during that time, bringing more damaging winds, heavy rain, and yes, some quarter-size hail, and maybe even a couple of tornadoes down that way into the overnight hours. So have multiple ways to get warnings. We'll be digging deeper into the severe weather potential tomorrow's video, but I did want to give you a heads up about this as we get closer. But even as we get into the middle of this week on Wednesday the 25th, that system will pull up here into the Ohio Valley, bringing some heavier snow swaths across the Illinois Valley and more so across Indiana, northwestern Ohio, and getting up here into Michigan as well. Some of that snow will be spreading farther east into Pennsylvania and New York State. Then all heavy rain with more stronger storm potential, I do think, across the Carolinas into southern portions of Georgia and northwestern Florida on Wednesday. And then that system will round out here into eastern portions of Canada as a 982 millibar low with a strong cold front extending far and wide from eastern Canada all the way down to South Florida here. Maybe a couple of showers down toward the Miami area and Key West, Florida on Thursday the 26th with this system, with heavier snows on up here into eastern Quebec and getting into portions there of eastern Canada. Looking at the swath of heavy snow then going into the middle and late portion of the week on Wednesday the 25th and Thursday the 26th, some of that heavier snow could be laying out across portions of southern Missouri, getting into southern Illinois, central portions of Indiana here near the Indianapolis region, then on up here into Ohio, portions of Detroit, and then getting up farther north and east into the mid-Atlantic and interior New England, again across places like Pittsburgh, Albany, New York, Syracuse, getting back up here in toward Buffalo as well through the day on Wednesday and Thursday. A solid swath of about 2 to 5 inches or more of snow does look likely going into late this week. Also, that heavy rain potential early this week on Tuesday into Wednesday. Heavy rain across East Texas, especially from Houston on up through Shreveport and portions of the Baton Rouge area. And that'll extend farther north and east toward Jackson, Mississippi. Some of these areas in the purple and red shaded colors could see over 2 inches of rain. And then that will extend up the eastern seaboard here from Maine down through New York City and getting down the eastern seaboard here into the Carolinas, Georgia, and northwestern Florida on Wednesday into Thursday with a solid swath of 1 to 2 inches of rain here in those blue shaded colors on the East Coast. Then a pattern change does come as we get to the very end of January and turn the page to February. This is Friday, January 27th, going through Tuesday, the end of the month here on January 31st. We'll start to see more of these colder temperatures spilling down from Canada into the northwestern United States. That ridging will be expected to transfer farther east across the southeastern United States, and then really locks in with this pattern as we start to turn the page to that first week in February, going through Saturday, February 4th. A lot of these colder temperatures will be spilling down farther south into places like Montana, the Dakotas, Nebraska, on up here into the upper Midwest, and some of this cold air will be seeping farther south toward the Red River in Texas, the Missouri Valley, and the Ohio Valley as we get through that time frame with that ridge being suppressed farther south across Florida and the immediate southeast during that first week in February. So looking at the source of that cold air, it's going to be all the way up into Siberia, northern portions of Canada, into the Arctic region. Again, 40, 50, 60 below temperatures on a daily basis up here, and that will continue through the day today. But as we look here through the day today, farther south along the lower 48 in southern Canada, now we don't have these deep purple colors just yet. We have these blues and lighter white colors. That does mean temperatures are near freezing, but not necessarily below zero. But as we go into next weekend, on Saturday, January 28th, we'll start to see more of these purples and deeper blues start to shift farther south in towards southern Canada and eventually into the Dakotas, Montana, and the upper Midwest. That means some very cold temperatures, likely below zero, high temperatures even, getting farther south toward the international border there next weekend with all that warmer air suppressed farther south. And by the time we get to the very end of the month on Tuesday, January 31st, and ready to turn the page to February, we see more of these purples and blues starting to overspread much of the northern and northeastern United States as well, with all that warmth suppressed down to the immediate Gulf Coast and down here into Florida and southern Texas at that point. So looking at the potential high temperatures going into the very end of the month on Tuesday, January 31st. Again, this is just a projection for now. This is not an official forecast, but you do see these below zero and even double digit below zero high temperatures potentially into southern Canada, southeastern Canada, around 15 to 25 degrees below zero at the very end of the month, and some of that will be seeping farther south into the northern plains here, into the Dakotas, into the upper Midwest, places like Minnesota and Wisconsin, with that freezing line farther south toward the Red River in Texas, toward the Missouri Valley and the southern Ohio Valley as well, with that warmth suppressed farther south. And looking at potential wind chills during this period, yeah, we could be talking about nasty wind chills up into southern, southeastern Canada, around 30, 40, even 50 degrees below zero, and some of those 20 and even 30-degree below zero wind chills could be spreading farther south into the Dakotas, Minnesota, and portions of Wisconsin during that last day or so here in January. Also with this comes the active weather as well. You have the cold in place, so you have to look out for that jet stream here. That subtropical jet will be in full force to end the month of January here, rounding the base of that polar vortex, and we have a lot of energy with this as we get into early February even as well, extending into that Monday, February 6th time frame here, just to the north of this subtropical jet. All that snowfall will be flying, I do think, into the first week in February. In fact, from January 31st through February 6th, I do think that snow zone will be up here and running across portions of the Intermountain West here, getting through the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and parts of the Ohio Valley, with low tracks that will come off of the lee side of the Rockies and move across the central and southern plains and on off to the east toward the East Coast. More of those rain and storms with warmth farther south will be found across Texas, parts of southern Oklahoma, and then across the immediate Gulf Coast and the southeast during that time frame. And again, we'll be pulling that snow line farther south as well. Heavier snowstorms can be possible as we get toward late January and more so into that first full week in February. I do think some heavier snow will be likelier up here into the Dakotas, perhaps as far south as Nebraska, getting into Iowa here, portions of northern Illinois, including the Chicago and Milwaukee areas as well into Wisconsin that really haven't seen much snow this season, could be pulling that farther south. And you can see some of that here moves into the Ohio Valley and Northeast again as we get through that February 6th timeframe. So we'll continue to watch that, and all signs do indicate that that will continue with that step down process of that snowfall farther south getting in towards the middle of February. So to recap the weather forecast for you guys, again, we have the weekend weather. We'll get rid of that again. Major winter storm that is happening this week with heavy snow and severe weather, Arctic blast, and more snowstorms as well into late January and early February in this video. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. Remember to like the video down below by giving it a thumbs up. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Have a great Sunday, everybody. A great rest of your weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.